opponents. Today's motion is correctly and well justified. It states, this House believes that peace is a collective responsibility that requires global cooperation and solidarity. Now, I believe all of us know the saying that states, teamwork makes the dream work and two heads are better than one. Now, not to get too much into that, I would like to first define the key terms and give you a proper analysis of today's resolution. First of all, peace is a state of tranquility, harmony, calmness, and absence of conflict and disturbance. Responsibility is to take accountability. Global cooperation refers to collaborative efforts between countries. Solidarity refers to the sense of unity, support, and mutual concern among individual groups and countries. Now, panel, today's debate will be judged based on the House that proves to us whether peace is a collective responsibility that requires global cooperation and solidarity or not. Now, peace is not just the absence of war, it is the presence of justice, security, and tranquility. It is also a common good for every nation, and this does not make it less of a collective responsibility. Now, over the years, conflict and disturbance have gone from a ground level to a higher level, and this requires global cooperation and solidarity. Now, our perimeter is the globe because each and every sector of this world desires peace. Now, what is the current situation in our globe? The current situation is that international cooperation is increasingly recognized as essential. Now, who are the stakeholders in today's resolution? The stakeholders are the government and state actors, international organizations, and citizens of various countries. Now, today as the team of farmers, we have come to prove to you that peace is a collective responsibility that requires global cooperation and solidarity. Now, the negators must come here and prove to us why peace is not a collective responsibility that requires global cooperation and solidarity. Now, let us make a comparison between countries that have actually believed that peace is truly a global cooperation and countries that don't believe in this fact. Let us take examples of Switzerland. Let us take examples of Switzerland, Norway, Costa Rica, and Finland. Now, these countries that when they had conflict at various levels, they considered global cooperation and solidarity. They got support from neighboring countries. They were collaborative with various countries, and they have today, as we currently speak, they have fostered peace, long-term peace. If you look at Switzerland, Switzerland is at a state of tranquility. It is at a state of calmness and not disturbance. On the other hand, we have Syria and Somalia that have refused to accept global cooperation. Now, what is happening in these countries? Syria, since 2011, have not fostered peace in any way. They are currently experiencing civil wars that have not stopped until date. Now, we have Israel and Iran that are at current war. They are fighting against each other. They have failed to solve conflicts between each other, and they truly need global cooperation to solve this conflict. Now, over to our point of argument, we'll talk about global challenges that need joint solutions. We'll talk about elimination of conflict and unity of people. Now, coming to global challenges that need joint solutions, let us look first at the major threats to peace. What are the major threats to peace? We have climate change, we have poverty, we have inequality, and we have nuclear proliferation and that are global in nature. Now, what do we mean when we talk about nuclear proliferation? What do we mean by this? Nuclear proliferation is the spread of nuclear weapons and related technology. This disrupts peace in several profound and dangerous ways. It's not just the risk of actual use that creates instability, but also the dynamics that it introduces to global security, diplomacy, and conflict. Now, how does this nuclear proliferation disrupt the peace? First of all, let us know that the more nuclear-armed states there are, the greater the risk of nuclear wars. Now, whether by miscalculations, misunderstanding, or even deliberate escalations, wars will happen because of this nuclear proliferation. Now, what do we need to solve this problem of nuclear proliferation? We need global cooperation. We need solidarity because nuclear weapons are not easy. Now, assuming that a war broke out with nuclear weapons, that would be like the Second World War because nuclear weapons, according to Global Service and Google, are very, very, very dangerous weapons. Now, how does climate change also disrupt peace? It disrupts in the way that because of environmental changes, that is rising of sea levels, extreme weather events, droughts, and food insecurity, and also increases resource scarcity. Yes?
This thing is not working. Not working. Okay. global cooperation. Yes, okay, global cooperation such as what?
Thank you very much. Not a meaning of global cooperation. We have global cooperation such as we have global cooperation such as the United Nations. Now, how does the United Nations help how is the United Nations global cooperation? First of all, it's supported by mediation and negotiation. It provides peacekeeping missions, prevent war and monitor peace, and it also has ceasefire agreements. Now, what do these global corporations do to foster peace? Well, how do these global corporations make sure that there is peace? First of all, we have diplomacy and negotiation. We have regional cooperation and alliances. We have conflict resolution and mediation. I said earlier, we have a war happening currently between Iran and Israel. And if these two countries do not involve global cooperation, there's no way that they can solve this, because they have tried to solve this conflict between themselves and they have failed. Now, thank you for interrupting me. I was actually in my point of argument. I was talking about how climate disrupts peace because there's food insecurity and scarcity of resources. Now, such problems are better prevented than actually stopped, rather than responding to violence. We all know the saying that says prevention is better than cure. Now, if we have global corporations, if we truly practice solidarity to prevent such global challenges, we can foster a more prosperous world in today's debate. Now, the Nigeria should be able to come and tell us that which country has been able to foster peace without global cooperation and solidarity. Now, another burden to the negators is that they should come and strongly prove their points of argument in today's debate, because if they don't tell us how many countries, or if they don't tell us countries that have been able to foster peace without global cooperation and solidarity, they're going to lose today's debate. And I'm very proud to say that we're winning today's debate, even from our very first speech, because I have defined the key terms, I have given a matrix which I have defended very well. I have categorized the motion, I have given clarity to everything to the audience, and I'm sure the audience are not even confused. Now, let the negators come and show us how wrong we are in today's debate, because I know very well we are right and we're winning today's debate even from our very first speech. I remain Stella Piet, and I'm very proud to affirm today's motion.
Speech in 1, 2, 3. Ladies and gentlemen, respected panelists of today, my name is Adu James from the team Negators, from the team of farmers, Diamond House. We believe that peace requires collective responsibility. And this thing can be achieved through global collaboration in order for us to achieve the peace and solidarity that we want in our countries. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what did the team negators fail to tell us? The team negators have seriously failed to tell us if global collaboration is not the case, or is not the solution, then what's the solution, ladies and gentlemen, if we are not going to use global collaboration? Now, ladies and gentlemen, if they are going to tell us that individual war, we have seen Russia and Ukraine at war. They tried to solve their conflicts individually, but they have failed. When the UN intervened, up to now, they're still trying to solve the conflict between them. But then, ladies and gentlemen, did they try, or did they achieve the peace that they need individually? Of course, we believe that they did not achieve it individually. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as my first speaker stated earlier, that this debate will be judged based on the team that tell us how effective global collaboration is in achieving peace and solidarity in our countries. And also, it will be judged based on how the other team will tell us how ineffective global collaboration is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us take a look at Ethiopia and Liberia. Why do you think that Ethiopia and Liberia were not colonized? Simply because they were united. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that peace is a collective responsibility that requires global collaboration. We believe that the Ethiopians and the Liberians have come together, they united themselves, and they were able to defend themselves. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us take a scenario whereby some of the African states did not unite themselves. Now, that led to their colonization. But when Ethiopia and Liberia united themselves, they managed not to be colonized. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what the team of farmers, what the team negators have failed to also tell us, if not global collaboration, what else do they need? If it is individual achievement, then they have to come and tell us the process. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that one hand cannot clap. We require two hands in order for us to clap. Now, ladies and gentlemen, do they mean to tell us that only one country can solve its own conflict? We believe no. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me talk of my first point of argument, that is elimination of conflicts and unity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at most of the countries that have always come together and they cooperated with the United Nations peace-building agency that have managed to achieve peace and solidarity in their countries. We take a look at Switzerland, whereby they cooperated with the United Nations peace-building initiative, whereby they were able to achieve peace. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that through the United Nations, we are able to eliminate peace. We are able to eliminate conflict in Switzerland. If we are able to eliminate conflict in Switzerland, then why not choose the United Nations peace-building agency in order for us to be able to achieve the peace that we need? Why do we have to solve our things individually? Now, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that we, the team farmers, believe that if the countries cooperate in the global collaboration in achieving peace, we believe that all the countries can come together. We shall be having a united universe. Now,
we believe that South Sudan has been part of the United Nations for a couple of years now, and there's always conflict in South Sudan. Can you please explain why?
Thank you so very much. We believe that the United Nations have been in South Sudan, and South Sudan have recently gained its independence in 2011. The United Nations have come into South Sudan and they were able to recover peace in some states. For example, the Lake State. Now in Lake State we have peace simply because the United Nations have spread the message of peace and unity among the people of Lake State in order for them to maintain the peace that they require. So I don't see that what you said is valid. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what's the point of clash here? The point of clash is urgency and sustainability. How urgent it is for us to involve global collaboration in order for us to achieve peace and solidarity. We see it is very urgent simply because the world is going to a different direction. And as the world is going to a different direction where everyone is conflicting, there is need for us to take global collaboration. And now let's come to their world whereby they are sustaining what they so-called individual ways of solving conflict. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you sustain the fact that people should be solving their own conflicts individually, I don't think that is valid. Because first, people are dying. Second of it, people are unable to achieve peace in their countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't really see there is need for us to sustain that thing. Now, urgency coming to our side, we believe that if the countries come together and work together as global collaboration as a globe, they can be able to achieve peace in their countries. Now, ladies and gentlemen, why do we say urgency is very important? Urgency is very important because we are seeing that our world, the number of people in our world is reducing, or the number of human beings is reducing, simply because they are fighting each other. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I require from the team negators is to come and tell us how are they going to save these people who are dying daily because of the conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, if not global collaboration, what else do we need in our world for us to achieve peace and solidarity in our countries? Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at South Africa. South Africa is a country that believed in global collaboration, or believes in the fact that people have to come together in order for them to achieve peace and solidarity in their countries. But then, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the countries which do not have which don't collaborate with a global collaboration agency. They have failed to achieve peace. But then now in South Africa, we believe that there is peace in South Africa currently simply because they believe in unity. They believe that all the countries have to come together, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we do have the African Union, because we believe that globally we can achieve peace and solidarity in our country, in our countries. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our third speaker will come here, tell you the reason as to why we're winning today's debate, tell you the reason as to why the other team is losing today's debate from their first definition, from their first speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our third speaker will also come here, weigh up the debate, and tell you the reason as to why we're winning today's debate. I am Adud James. I beg to rest my case.
Salam. Salam alaikum.
I'd love to begin my speech in 3, 2,
one. Panel, let us take you to the best case scenario of the team opposition and the best case scenario of team proposition. We clearly bring to table that collective work is what will bring peace. And in today's case, we have the main point of clash, which is the nature of the responsibility of peace. And team proposition claims that peace is shared and it's a collective responsibility, while team opposition says it is an individual responsibility for you to have peace. Now, allow me to dive into the best case scenario. You know, a global conflict is interconnected. It is interconnected and it requires unified responses. But now they come and start talking about Russia and Ukraine. But let me elaborate on this fact of Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine failed to solve their problems individually. That is why the United Nations was intervened to solve this conflict. And as now they are making negotiations because of the stiff demands that Russia and Ukraine were bringing into table. That is why they failed to solve it individually. So that is why they resorted to the United Nations to come and negotiate and come to a common ground. If they have failed individually, that means their point of solving conflict, giving peace and individualism does not work in today's debate. Now, they come in and in their first speech they talk about a scenario where it has failed in all the countries under them. But let us tell them about Switzerland. Switzerland is a country that was able to solve these things. Even the Northern Ireland peace process, which led to the Good Friday Agreement, whereby if they failed as themselves individually, we had the peace agreement, which was formed by the United Nations with a global intervention, which was able to solve this conflict and it was brought to peace. They are talking about shifting the dynamics, but let us see in today's aspect, whereby if Russia and Ukraine failed to solve their conflicts individually and they were able to come to common grounds and agreements of where Russia is supposed to give a certain territory to Ukraine and Ukraine is supposed to give a certain territory to Russia, we see that it has come to a common negotiation, which the team opposition fails to see in today's debate. Now, if institutions, they're talking about institutions, these disputes are at a low level. And let us first see individual peace. Now, this view could ignore border structure cases of conflict. For example, the political, economic, and that can be solved by individuals. So we see in their case of the scenario, we fail to have peace, which is a collective thing in global collaboration and solidarity. Now, let us move into our team case. Now, they come in their second speech talking about the problems of Team A. And in Team A, they're talking about Trump's policies. But Trump's policies, we see it is an effective policy whereby it was collaborating with very many aspects because of the illegal immigrants that were coming from Mexico. And because of Trump's policies, we are having the effectiveness in this global cooperation. Now, they come in and start talking about the 2011 where they killed the president, which is Muammar Gaddafi. But let us see what Muammar Gaddafi was doing in this aspect. We see that he was promoting tribalism. That is why he was assassinated. So for them to achieve fairness in Liberia, this was a systematic strategy to solve the issue. Muammar Gaddafi was a dictator. And this was now as we have seen the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi, we are seeing that this is a leading producer in petroleum, which is boosting the economy, which was not there when Muammar Gaddafi was there. So we are seeing it is a collaborative aspect, whereby these people saw that for the best aspect for this country to achieve certain peace and long-term peace, it was necessary for them to come up with this. Now, they come in talking about individualism. Now, let us see how they talk about the significant aspects. Now, they are talking about USA is not aiding China. We are seeing the aspect of where they are talking about USA and China. But let us see, USA is not aiding China as USA, but is aiding China as United Nations. But let us see, what do I mean by this? Let us go back to the 2019 COVID-19 aspect, whereby the USA was aiding China because they had the coronavirus. And we're seeing how the United Nations was using the United States to achieve long-term peace in that certain area. We were seeing that the coronavirus was a global spread, and it was because of the United Nations and other aspects that we were able to achieve this. Now, let us move into the Democratic Republic of Congo. They talked about Democratic Republic of Congo and the Ugandan military group, but this is a claim that team opposition comes in without further backbone. The Ugandan military did not go there as the Ugandan military, but went there as the East African Defense Forces. And the East African Defense Forces, one of the achievements of the East African Defense Forces, as we speak right now, there is certain peace. And they talk about Democratic Republic of Congo. Democratic Republic of Congo is a new country in the East African community. We do not expect Democratic Republic of Congo to be having the higher number of seats into the parliament if they have not yet even carried out the election. But the aspect of
that they talk about in their case. This is a claim that really made me laugh because they are talking about exclusion. But let us see United Nations. United Nations is an existing body that even these people know that it integrates all the countries, if not all, but most of the countries in the country, which is bringing about peace. And it is because of the collaborative work of the United Nations that is why we are having peace in certain areas. They are talking about the perception of that will be aided, and they have failed. If they have failed as individuals, what is the guarantee that if Russia has failed as individuals, what is the guarantee if we have to implement the individualism in other aspects that we are going to achieve long-term peace? Now, this is what we are seeing in today's debate. Today's debate has shifted from very many clashes, and one of the clashes that I said was the nature of responsibility of peace for global, that requires global cooperation and solidarity. We see that we are winning that clash simply because in our aspect, we are showing you how individualism has failed even in the leading developed countries like Russia and Ukraine. Now, if we are seeing how the United Nations came in and intervened, we are seeing the aspect has really shifted, and this is why we are winning today's debate. Now, furthermore, they talk about the United Nations having no aspect and they're just there for nothing. Now let us see how UNMISS is really helping. They're talking about the governors that solved this, but who got those governors? It was the work of UNMISS. Are we going to neglect that simple work that they got the governors for? Because UNMISS is not appearing in their case. Who got the governors? It was UNMISS. That is why that resolution, that conflict was solved. And if we are to see in our case, we are showing you that collaborative work really brings in the peace, and that is for global aspect. Now, furthermore, they are talking about Ethiopia and Liberia. Ethiopia and Liberia really made me laugh because even the World Food Program is really helping those people to get food. Now, what is World Food Program? World Food Program is an aspect whereby everybody that is affected by hunger, and we know some parts of Ethiopia are desert areas, and they have that ability to get the food. And if we are to see and weigh out the debate, we are seeing individualism has failed even when they brought in the stiff competitions in Russia and Ukraine. But in our case, we are showing how the United Nations helped to solve this conflict, to bring in a common ground of Russia and Ukraine so that they can make negotiations. And this is why we're winning today's debate. I beg to rest my case. I remain Adao Akila Hakim, proud to affirm. Thank you very much.
And as we speak, the conflict was settled. African Defense Forces.
Okay, I'll be starting this speech
They said that we're born.
in
They
3,
said that we're gonna reach the 20th to Congo.
Now let us start with the quotes that we get from proposition. The first quote that they tell us is that teamwork is something that is quite beneficial. Look here, when we have members of a team that are working together, that is the intention, but the likelihood of it not happening as planned is there. Because if individuals develop the interest for them to have other incentives apart from the main goal of that particular teamwork, it diverts and it is no longer teamwork, right? This is the case that we run in our world of the debate, because we are able to show you that insofar as states are concerned, there are countries that claim to work with these particular states, but it is not the actual case, right? They involve their interest in these particular nations. They are not able to achieve this sort of global collaboration that they say. But secondly, is when they tell us that two hands cannot clap. With one hand cannot clap with the other hand, right? But here, notice here, one hand cannot clap if the other hand has a razor. That is to say, you must probably inflict harm on the hand that is not having a razor, right? This is the case with them. Countries in Western world and countries that are most probably powerful inflict harm on countries that are vulnerable, right? We just think that insofar as they say that they are helping, they end up inflicting harm, right? We are able to show you the case of the Rwandan genocide. If teamwork was there, why didn't the UN help, right? We are able to show you, right? At the end of the day, you get to find out that recently, Iran was bombarded by the United States of America because of Iran was having nuclear, right? Chair, notice the funniest thing about this is that the United States of America has not proliferated its nuclear weapons, right? The problem with them is that they want other states to actually stop the work of nuclear, but they want to have this nuclear, right? They're able to show you that after the World War, there was an instance whereby they said that there was going to be a nuclear proliferation so as to stop a catastrophic war, so as to make sure that there is no problem that occurs in future. The problem with this was that some countries do not abide by this. Countries like Russia and the United States of America currently are still having nuclear weapons, right? In an instance instance whereby you say all countries, there is no country in Africa that is having this nuclear weapon. In an instance whereby there is a state of global conflict, right? You must probably leave the globe at a state of imbalance. We think that we win this debate when we are able to show them that their state of justice is one that is not able to account for those vulnerable countries that are unfavored by these systems. For the case of Muammar Gaddafi, right, when they clearly lie about the fact that Libya is a country that produces the largest amount of oil currently because the United States of America and NATO have decided to kill Muammar Gaddafi, right? This is a clear lie because we are able to show you that this particular government was working well for the people within this government. Imagine the fact that that government was able to account for a person when they are born until the time when they finish their university. It pays your school fees, and each and every family or household is paid money, right? This was the best government that Africa would probably have, and possibly the best government that would have ever existed in the world. But the NATO decided to execute it, right? This was quite a problem, right? So insofar as the development of countries are concerned, you get to find out that these particular nations that have the influence are able to influence individuals to kill people that will make progress within their states, right? It is a clear lie when they say that Libya currently is the leading, right? That is a clear lie because Libya currently is in a state of conflict since the year 2011, right? These are problems that have not been solved because Muammar Gaddafi was killed. We think that they lose this debate when they are not able to clearly show us from past record how these global institutions have been able to achieve peace within the status quo. We are able to show you that we are effective with solving conflicts, right? They tell us the case of Lake State, right? Which was the case that supports ours because the government is the one that is responsible for electing individuals within a state. We think it is a strategic flaw and a lie from them when they tell us that UNIMIS actually participated in the process of electing Green Train as the government. This is a clear lie because the UNIMIS does not have any direct affiliation to the affairs of a country that concerns policies or formulation or selecting leaders that will most probably work in states, right? The UNIMIS is not involved in any way possible. We think they lose this debate at that point in time. We are able to tell them that there's a problem within those, like they say that the US helped these countries like China through the UN. We tell them that at the end of the day, in instances whereby the US is not able to help, they will still withdraw their budget. But the UN won't be able to execute a project in China when they don't have the budget of the United States of America. This is the problem with them because essentially they are not able to acknowledge that the fact that countries are impacted. It has never been a clear ballot for House opposition vote for us.
Okay. Okay. First of all, let me apologize. I have a problem with my throat and you don't get me very well. Please pardon me for that.
Pay attention to what he has.
Okay. My name is Nicodemus and I will begin my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Chair, let me take you back to history during the World War I. After World War I happened, two things happened. One, there was proliferation of weapons. Weapons were taken from the individuals who participated in that. But then two, League of Nations was formed. There was some kind of collective responsibility, right? But after those two things were formed, the nation who involved their own interest, but then the weapons still existed, right? But then two, League of Nations failed, and that's why World War II still existed at the end of the day, right? So we just think it comes down to one point, that these collective responsibilities that are global have already failed to achieve peace within the society, right? But moreover, we just think it comes down to one point, because our best claim is that these organizations have already achieved peace, right? But we'll give you two examples of why this is true that have failed. One, we give you the case of Rwandan genocide in 1994. United Nations was supposed to act, but first, the bureaucracy that they followed, they failed to act first of all in the first place, right? But in the second place, they acted, but then it was already too late. So they withdrew their own truth, right? That is the proof that these organizations have already failed within this track, right? I will deal with four things in my speech. One, I'll give you the thesis of this debate and why it ends. Two, Trump's claims and promotes in this debate, and prove why global institutions have already failed, and then the question in this debate. But Pano, what do we think is really the thesis of this debate, right? We think the thesis of this debate is specifically on why this peace is more of collective achievement, right? The best claim we get from them is that this is some kind of global responsibility that we right? But on our house, we get the one response that this global responsibility you're speaking of have already failed to achieve peace within society, right? But moreover, we tell you that this national sovereignty, this national responsibility, and even individualism, because peace is first of all an individual ethic. You understanding that conflict is something bad, and then through education at the end of the day, you will understand that, right? And then understanding why culture shouldn't be implemented in the present. But moreover, we just think these nations have the responsibility to achieve peace at the end of the day, right? There's something that they say that really laughs at before, when they claim that the peace in Lake State was because of the United Nations. That is the very fat line this way, right? Because it was his responsibilities. He's the part of South Sudan government, right? And he was able to achieve peace within Lake State, right? This proves to you that the government itself have the potential and its own responsibilities to achieve peace within Sudan, right? We just win this way, even from our first week, even if they don't consider our second and third week, right? But for now, they claim that teamwork or two heads are better than one, right? I will tell you, your two heads have already failed to achieve peace within the society. That's why even the current president, individuals are still fighting for themselves. The very United Nations still exists, right? But the best picture we get from them is that countries such as Liberia and Somalia have failed to accept this thing, like have failed to accept the help of the United Nations, right? That is really cemented. Why? Because these individuals are part of the United Nations. And if you're a member of the United Nations, you will not refuse for the United Nations to act on the problem you're facing. So we just think at the end of the day, it is United Nations that is not adequate in solving the problem that people in Somalia and Liberia face. Right? We just think they do not refuse to solve that problem, right? But another symmetric thing that they say is on the issue of Russia and Ukraine, that these people refuse for the help of these people, right? That is a very fat line. Why? Because these people are part of the United Nations, right? But moreover, United Nations do not act on that problem. They just say Russia and Ukraine have this problem, but they have done nothing. That is a problematic thing they have. Why? Because these individuals are not able to act on this thing, right? But then two, United Nations, the United States of America recently bombarded Iran. What did the United Nations do? They did nothing. And that is something we see problematic. Why? Because countries such as the United States of America are bombarding other countries, but the United Nations have failed to do that thing, right? And moreover, we prove to you that the United Nations is not effective. Why? Because the fate of 193 countries is being decided by only 5 countries, right? We just think that decisions that even make us the United Nations. Why? Because individuals who even involve their interests make decisions that are not favorable to all the people. Even African nations do not have representation within the United Nations Security Council, right? We just see that as some kind of a problem in this debate, right? But also, panel, they claim on the issue of these countries not really having interest in acting on the problem or them not accepting this thing, right? We tell you there's an issue of the Ugandan armed forces. When they were taken to Congo, they end up taking the resources of these people. But moreover, the United Nations have proof that the government of Rwanda is supporting the M23. But what have they done? They did nothing, and we see that as a problem that will really exist in their household, right? They just lose this debate. Why? Because their best claims that the United Nations authority help people. But we prove to you from first record 1, they have failed to solve problems of peace. That's why conflict still exists. But moreover, they will not solve the problem of peace. Why? Because they have lost the legitimacy of their own work within society, right? We just think we win this debate even from the open, right? But for now, let us look at also the nature of collective work, right? Collective work must not be a country with the country, right? Collective work also includes citizens and the government and people within the country acting on those issues, right? We just think when the government itself, with its own citizens,
we are
and
talking
every
about
action they bring together, that is collective responsibility, right? Now imagine a scenario whereby South Sudan is at peace, Congo is at peace, Rwanda is at peace, US is at peace, and all the countries are at peace.
It is a global cooperation, not
so we just think South Sudan needs to solve its own issues on its own. Uganda needs to solve issues on its own of peace. And at the end of the day, peace will prevail within the African nation and everywhere in Earth, right? We just think United Nations itself have already failed to achieve peace within the society, right? There are 3 problems we see in their house debate. 1 is on the nature of how the United Nations affect the people, right? We tell the United Nations ready. Our church has a very good display.
It is a global cooperation, not an individual to individual cooperation.
They have not solved issues of conflict that already existed, right? But moreover, we tell you that this government itself and the national responsibilities have the power to solve the conflict. Why? Because these are citizens of their own country. But moreover, we don't expect United Nations to come and solve the problem of Nuer and Dinka, because it's South Sudan that knows the problem between Nuer and Dinka. United Nations doesn't know what caused that problem. So we don't see instances in which we need the United Nations to come and solve all this problem, right? We just think that problem the United Nations can't even solve because they've already shown us a display that they cannot even solve all this problem at the end of the day, right? But problem is on the nature of exclusivity, right? We just think exclusivity exists moreover in their house, right? Because with the United Nations, it's only specific individuals that are acting on making decisions of all the countries, right? That's to say, if there's something or a policy they need to pass that, it's only decided by only 5 countries, and even if this country do not accept that thing, we just think they will impose all these things on all the individuals, right? But moreover, we tell you we do not really know the future. Why? Because United States of America is more of having power within the United Nations, right? But imagine a scenario where the United States of America withdrew their responsibilities out of that. What will happen to countries that are already dependent in the United Nations, right? That's something they don't engage with. Why? Because we think that is problematic. Because these countries are already depending on the things of the United Nations, and at the end of the day, the United Nations does not really act on those things. We just think they will face problems at the end of the day, right? Now, put them up to the point of clashes in this debate and why we win this thing. One is on the nature of how people achieve problems of accountability within society, right? We tell you the problems that exist within society societies, are not the things that are acted on, are not the things that are caused by United Nations not acting on all these problems, right? But moreover, they claim that Muhammad Gaddafi was doing some kind of tribalism within society. That's a very big lie. Why? Because Muhammad Gaddafi was one of the best leaders African nations have ever seen. Right? So just think that
How come there was discrimination in
you get
Libya?
your own money that you're paid. If you're going to the university, you do not pay anything. They even give me money at the end of the day. How is that tribalism? We just don't think tribalism exists. Why? Because Muhammad Gaddafi was the best leader that Nigeria ever seen. Right? But now we just think still conflicts exist. Why? Because African nations have already lost leaders, and it was through global organizations that they claimed it. NATO killed Mohammed Gaddafi, and the problems exist within Libya now. We just feel they don't engage with that. Why? Because that's really problematic in their house of debate, and we this debate even from our past. Right? But also, panel, it's on the nature of UNMISS acting. Right? They claim that United it was because of UNMISS that Team Train was able to be chosen. That is what they claim, that the government was able to be chosen because of that. Right? We just think UNMISS does not have power to elect someone to be the government. That's not their responsibility.
They were choosing that. They were helping in mobilization of the governors, not to choose
the decision of the country, right? UNMISS is just there to support, but moreover, their support have already failed. Nothing has been changed within all the system in country, right? It has always been clear ballot for opposition. Thank you.
Problems collectively.
I have to, so
rather
if
than
I don't sound well,
individually, okay?
I apologize for that. First of all, I want to say thank you to Diamond House, that is Monto. Thank you to Elite High School Team D. And I want to say thank you to my team, Cycles of Elite High School Debate Pioneers. And thank you to my patron, Simon Dengchol. Has been a great tournament, reaching the finals of this very tournament. I want to say thank you to Elite High School Jiba for the support, for reaching this very end. Also thank you to my school, Elite High School, for the support, making sure that we get to this tournament. I do appreciate that. And I want to also say thank you to every institution that have taken their time to attend this very tournament. I think it was a great one. Now, if all those are okay, then I think I'll have to start. And the first thing, over there is the Mavericks, that is our team mascot. He has been speaking with us from the first round up to today, and we are so proud of that. Abbas, Jock, and Garang, that is Team D. If we're all good, allow me to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, Team Affirmative lose this debate from their first speech when the only proof we could get from them is telling us global cooperation, and we're not able to specify what are those global corporations they're talking about. We asked them a POI, global corporations such as what? They say United Nations. Now let me give you a scenario, or let me give you a fact that United Nations have even failed all the countries under them. Say for example, the Rwandan genocide in 1994 that they were not able to prevent. Now becomes a problem with and how the debate has been founded of this motion. So proud of the game. A few points of set up a framing in this debate. And we think this team loses this debate from the framing when they were not able to look at this motion at a broader perspective. Now let me give you a few key terms in this motion. A is global cooperation. We just think global cooperation. These are global bond to counter problems, right? A global bond all the countries have to counter problems within the globe, right? But then solidarity is like working together towards achieving a certain goal, right? Now, why do we think in the first place, from the past record, global corporations themselves have failed and have not been able to administer peace as demanded, right? That is the problem we see here half of the debate. A, we talk of slow response, right? We just think in this debate, global corporations would have this scenario of them sitting down to first discuss an issue before coming back with a solution. Talk of Rwandan genocide. They were actually discussing that thing of Rwandan genocide and people were being killed in Rwanda, right? That's the problem we see with global cooperation, and that buys us the win of this motion. Secondly, is ineffective active, right? We just think in this debate, global cooperation are not actively effective, right? We just think that they're not able to bring in something that will actually benefit all the countries in this debate. Just for example, the Russia and the Ukraine war, right? This actually is being seen by all the entire world. The global cooperation are not acting toward that, right? That becomes a problem we see with global cooperation in this debate. But then thirdly, is unfavorable decision. Right? Just in this debate, global corporations have decisions that they made based on the countries that have been involved in that particular problem. Take for example, the international criminal justice, right? That actually account United States if they have made some problem, right? Just think in this debate, global corporations actually save other people. Like United States has not been been ever convicted or maybe held accountable by ICJ in this debate. That becomes a problematic thing to see in their House debate as team affirmative of this motion. But then thirdly and lastly, we think diverse focus. Global cooperation focus on diverse stuff, right? They focus on a lot of things. Actually, you don't have specifically that are able to achieve, let me just say, peace on that particular stuff. That becomes problematic in their House debate as team negative. We just think in this debate, let's take back to 2011, the death of Mohammed Gaddafi, that was killed by NATO. A global corporation killed a president of Libya. That was because that is a global corporation. They have the self-interest to remove that person, right? Do you think that global corporation can bring peace in this case? That is creating more problems in the society that become problematic in their House debate. Now, if we think global cooperation doesn't work in this debate, what do we bring them? We have a model that we are able to counter model your own policy as team affirmative. We talk of individualism, right? We just think in this debate, if I fight with one of the girls from this school today, I would expect United Nations to come and stop us, right? It's like an individualism. So peace is something that you do by yourself. It's something that no one has to believe in. So there's no way United Nations will come and tell me to accept peace, to enforce peace on me if I don't want to accept peace, right? We just think it starts from individualism. People are able to be educated about how peace is, and that becomes the best thing in this debate other than global cooperation that can inflame people in the first place. But then secondly, national sovereignty, right? In this debate, the first speaker actually was supporting our case entirely, right? Saying, giving us countries that actually like Switzerland, in the case that Switzerland actually is a country that accepted peace, right? We just think if a nation accepts peace by themselves, that becomes more important than global cooperation talking about as TM in this debate. And in a House debate, we give you a model of national sovereignty or set responsibility to encounter or to bring peace, right? Other than global cooperation, right? We just tell you in this debate, peace is a collective responsibility, yes, but doesn't require global cooperation. It requires national sovereignty. It also requires individualism in this debate. Those are the model we give you as a negative in this motion. Now, why do we think our model is more preferable in the case, right? We think that institutional focus, right? If a country is to focus on the peace within the nation, they're able to achieve it than focusing on the global cooperation that they're actually not going to bring in as a people decision to them. I'm going to take up your idea.
Now, this is a point of correction to you. It's not a problem that you don't know history, but Switzerland was able to foster peace that they have there because of global cooperation and help that they got from other countries that solve conflict that they had in their country.
All right. She's saying Switzerland was able to gain this peace because of the global cooperation. You didn't get with that. What global cooperation gives them that peace, right? We think that is problematic in your House of debate as affirmative of this motion. Now we tell you here why we think our model is more preferable, right? Institutional focus. They're able to focus on things that happen within the nation, not giving themselves to think about global cooperation in this debate. There's no one who will expect the United Nations to come in here and settle the dispute between communities, the dispute between individuals, right? That becomes unlogical in this debate. So we win that thing in our House debate. But then secondly, speed of achieving peace, right? We think if a nation is to focus on its own thing, its own problem, right? They're able to achieve peace faster than the global cooperation in this debate. Now, what do we tell you here? We tell you, Pano, that global cooperation, I'm going to say in the past record, they've done more negativity than the positivity of achieving peace. That becomes problematic in the House of debate as a committee of this motion. Now, why do you think even it's not even likely to be achieved in the House of debate? The peace is not actually likely to be achieved. Is exclusion. We think in this debate, global cooperation does not include all the countries, right? That means anything can happen, right? Because any country like Russia that is not included in most of the organization, right, can actually do anything and nobody will question them because they're not part of global cooperation. That becomes problematic in their House of debate. But then secondly, political opposition, right? Not all the countries will accept this idea of global cooperation, like we'll be expecting peace from the United Nations, we'll be expecting peace from other things like NATO, right? That becomes problematic in your House of debate, and we think that peace is not achievable in your House of debate. Now, what do we say? We are telling you in this debate, our model is more acceptable because a country is able to align with its own policy because it's able to protect their people and actually bring in things that actually solve problems in the nation that are affecting peace. Now, something as a family need to know here, we cannot become a globe, or a global peace cannot become if all the countries have conflict, right? It doesn't actually, it's not logical. A country must have peace to become a global peace, right? So first of all, let's focus on the state getting their own peace to achieve global peace. So we just think in this debate, peace requires national sovereignty or state responsibility for us to have peace in the entire globe, right? Now, what are the arguments in this debate? It's sustainable peace that I will talk about. My second speaker will take you through the journey of ineffective and dysfunctional of global institute, right? Let me take you through the journey of sustainable peace, right? They might be talking about peace in their House of the debate, but then they're saying global cooperation can bring in peace, right? But then the question is, what if one day that global cooperation will actually dictate on those particular people? We just think in this debate, global cooperation like United Nations are being owned by some, the
the much percentage of it is being held by United States and other countries. There's no African countries that have a much of influence within United Nations, right? So just think in this debate, anytime they can come in and influence things within that nation, within Africa, that becomes problematic in their household debate. And we think also, with this particular global cooperation, there's no sustainable peace because global cooperation can just fall in time and peace will actually, the conflict will arise, right? But in a household debate, with the nation actually getting their own sovereignty and solving their own peace, right? That becomes more sustainable and longer because A, they're able to stand with their nation as a nation, and all the nations within the globe are able to stand firm and achieve peace, and this is why we are actually achieve sustainable peace than their household debate. We just think in this debate, we win on two things. One, we're able to prove to them that global cooperation are failing in the past record, and we'll prove to you why we think nations have the ability to bring their own peace, and that's how peace can be sustained in the entire globe. So proud to have this morning. Thank you very much.
When they intervene with the United Nations, which is a third party to come and solve this thing. If individualism fails in that case, what is the guarantee that it will work in other cases? The debate can be won in the first stage.
Okay. Before I start my speech, I'll just like to take 30 seconds of my time to thank my patron, my team members for bringing me as far as this. And I'll be starting this speech one last time. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. You see, part of the greatest problem with this side of the debate is the fact that they are not able to acknowledge the current status and dynamics of the globe. This makes them lose this debate in the first place. We just think that they lose from first and second speed even before third speed comes, right? A couple of things that I'll be doing in my speech. A, I'll be pointing out the problems that probes has in their debate. But secondly, I'll be trying to analyze what are their throwouts and their pushes, and lastly, making instantive analysis to what we say in our world of the debate. A, what are the problems that probe has in their debate? A, they are not able to acknowledge the fact that the world exists in a world in which conservative governments just start at the end of the day, right? Look at the Trump policies currently. We get to find out that the USA never works for countries, right? And this USA was used to fund peace projects within countries, right? In an instant whereby these type things happen, countries that depend on this particular USA will remain with a peace that relies on foreign aid, right? Is this the kind of peace that we want? Not really. We just think that they lose peace debate, but they are not able to achieve that kind of peace that works best for people, right? We just think that even in their best case scenario, when they still have these particular countries, these particular aids that are given in these countries, right? We just think that it is something that is not sustainable. It does not last for long, right? We are willing to buy into the idea of letting something go away if we are able to achieve that long-term peace, right? But secondly is on the idea of communalism and conservative, right? But here, notice here, when you talk of global cooperation, it looks like countries aiding countries, just like they say in their first and second speech. But look, the problem with this is that countries that might be communist might not aid countries that are conservative. It looks like trying to say that the United States of America is willing to aid China when it comes to a problem that regards conflict, right? This is not likely because the United States of America, A, is conservative and it only wants to serve the interests of its people, right? We just think that this is quite problematic with such particular countries. We are not able to achieve this specific program of trying to say that we want this global unity or a global place whereby we want to work things out together, right? But third, let us look at the current affairs and why they lose this debate. When they tell us the case of Russia and Ukraine, we just laugh because it is something that clearly affects their case, right? The United Nations has clearly failed to solve this problem, right? And the US and the Russia and the Ukraine depend on the knowledge that's saying that these particular people will be able to solve our problems, right? This knowledge is the one that keeps killing them, right? We just think that if they are able to leave this resentment and understand the fact that these particular people are not going to solve the problems that they face, they'll be able to solve these problems that they face with the status quo denied. And then again, on the domination of countries within these particular existing bodies, like look at the case of the EAC, which are actually part of these global bodies.
It means that the US is
parts of Africa and parts of the globe, right? It looks like trying to say for the case of the case of DRC, right? Parts of the EAC are dominated by parts of Kenya, by parts of Rwanda, right? The problem here is that countries like DRC are favored and not favored the very most, right? But secondly is the case of UN. The United States of America holds up to a third of the UN's yearly income. That is to say that the budget of the UN is contributed up to a third of the United States of America. In an instance whereby the United States of America is not able to contribute this budget as it is happening now, we are not able to mobilize these particular resources, right? We think that we are not able to fuel these particular projects in which we want to solve peace in these particular nations. They lose this debate at that point in time. And then also on the issue of exclusion, right? Here, look here, the case of the United Nations Security Council is only the only countries that are part of it are only countries that are powerful. Only 5 countries, they decide the fate of the world. Look here, how can we decide the fate of countries in which we don't know the particular situations that they face within those countries? We think they lose this debate when they are not able to actively address that. But moreover, we get to find out that there is no African country that is part of this UN Security Council, right? The problem here is that when decisions are made, one, they take time. So at the end of the day, you get to find out that these particular decisions are one that delay. But moreover, they are not able to actively solve the problems that these particular problems face within these countries. I'll take that point.
Do you believe that different countries can foster global cooperation?
That is something that I've said in my speech. I think she was not getting me. They say that different countries cannot foster global cooperation. That is not likely because there are countries that have interest, right? So even at a point in which a country aids a country, they'll most probably be having interest. Let me give you a pragmatic example. In the case of Rwanda and DRC and Uganda, you get to find out that soldiers of Uganda that were taken to go and help those who are in DRC because of the conflicts, they ended up taking the country, they ended up taking the resources within those nations, right? We get to find out that this is not very likely because they still get these particular negative impacts in their debate, where even in their best case scenario, they have these people aiding themselves, but interest will always exist, right? We think they lose this debate. And then on the issue of short-term peace or who achieves the long-term peace, we think they are not able to achieve this long-term peace that they claim to achieve. Because at the end of the day, it looks like saying that, oh, today will be budgeted and will be given the money for us to solve these problems within our states tonight, for us to solve this money within our states. But moreover, tomorrow when the conservative government kicks in, we won't have this money, right? So our our peace depends on the aid that we get from outside countries, right? This is the problem with them. They are not able to have that long-term spectrum of peace, right? But we are able to achieve it, right? Because in our world of the debate, even when they tell us an example of the leg state, right? Pan will notice here that that was not done by the UN. We have governors that were working in those particular places. It is a state responsibility to making sure that peace exists in those countries. That is why we have peace in this debate. Because essentially here, we think they lose this debate and they are not able to acknowledge the fact and they bring about a lie that says that the UN has actually worked out peace. We have the UNIS in South Sudan, right? It is a body that just exists with names, but is not able to actively show that the fact that they are trying to invent. The 2013 war erupted in the end of the year. When did the UN invent? It was in 2014, right? Look here, the time that they took for the UNIS to actually come to South Sudan. This was a problem that was actively present in their case of the debate. We try to bring a world in which we want to shift our focus and show the fact to the global community that we want to shift our focus. I'll take that point.
To solve that issue, but they were short. So the
Testify to the House which country has been able to achieve long-term peace and how?
Partner, look here. Their case of the debate does not have short-term peace, does not have long-term peace. But we are able to show you that for the fact that these particular nations have the perception that they are going to be aided, they will always cling to this idea. So they'll most probably always remain in that state of conflict because of the fact they say that these countries will bring the aid, they will give us the process in which we can solve these particular problems. They are asking us about a specific country. We are able to show you that we need a shift in dynamics and a shift in the way things are done. We are able to show you that these particular countries need to leave out things with global corporations and be able to work individually and within as the state responsibility